First Lady Michelle Obama is using this crisis to promote the radical expansion of nationwide voting by mail. Citizens could request ballots online and then print them at home. Now, no serious person at the national level has ever suggested doing that before because, of course, it would instantly destroy the public's faith in election outcomes and hence our democracy. But if there was ever a time to sneak something this disruptive past a beleaguered and distracted population, this is it. The justification for all this? Take a guess. Yes, racism.
Without voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia.
We need to be vigilant against other efforts to suppress vote, like voter ID laws, which are every bit as racist as the racist gerrymandering.
When racially motivated voter suppression is permitted, when districts are drawn so that politicians get to choose their vote, we cannot truly say that we live in a democracy.
It was the voter suppression, particularly of African-American communities, that prevented us from having a Governor Stacey Abrams right now.
Yes. 24 states introduced or enacted at least 70 bills to curtail the right to vote. And guess what? Mostly directed at, quote, people of color. You see it. We got Jim Crow sneaking back in. No, I mean it.
Jim Crow? Voter suppression? The right to vote in peril? What century is this? Well, if you guessed everything you just heard is a complete and utter provable lie, well, then you win tonight's Insight Award. Government IDs are not racist. They're mandatory. You can't live here without one. If you don't have an ID, you can't drive, you can't fly, you can't open a bank account, can't apply for a mortgage, get welfare, buy alcohol or tobacco. You can't hold a legal job. Pretty much every person in America has a government ID. And in fact, in February 2019, a paper co-authored by professors at Harvard and the University of Bologna in Italy found that voter ID laws had no effect whatsoever on voter turnout for any subgroup they measured, whether it was by age or gender or party or, yes, by race. This is a complete and utter crock. And everyone who says it knows that. So why are they continuing to say it? Well, you know why. Because voter ID laws stop voter fraud. Democrats encourage voter fraud because it helps them win elections. And that's not a guess. In California, the Democrat-controlled legislature allows something called ballot harvesting. That's when political activists are allowed to pick up ballots and then turn them into the state by the hundreds and thousands. Why do they get to do this? Well, of course, you can guess what happens next. In Orange County, California, during the last election cycle, 62% of all ballots were absentee. A huge percentage of those ballots were late arrivals, meaning they got to the state after Election Day. 250,000 of them were supposedly cast by inactive voters. That means people who hadn't voted in the past 4 years. Some significant number of those were fraudulent. The Institute for Fair Elections found at least 20 voters whose registered address was a local dog park. 71 are registered to a Starbucks. Under California law, and this is by design, there is virtually no way to distinguish a fraudulent vote from a real one. The result? When the smoke cleared from that election, Republicans had lost every congressional seat in Orange County, which, as you likely know, is a longtime GOP stronghold. People watching said, oh, the demographics have changed. No, the rules had changed. In other words, the plan worked perfectly. Now Democrats would like to see that system come to your state, to every state, and they're using the coronavirus pandemic to justify it. IDs are racist. Expect to hear a lot more of that lie. And yet, weirdly, at the very same time, some of our leaders are considering requiring special papers, even blood tests, just to go outside.
Can you imagine a time where Americans carry certificates of immunity?
You know, that's possible. I mean, it's one of those things that we talk about when we want to make sure that we know who the vulnerable people are and not. This is something that's being discussed. I think it might actually have some merit under certain circumstances.
This is such a sad, scary moment that you hate to think it's true, but it's hard not to conclude. Some people are using our fear for their own ends. And fake election reform is not the only way. Demagogues are leveraging this pandemic to put themselves in power, to capture our institutions, to erode our rights.